Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. I never imagined that one small decision could change the way I looked at my family forever. It started on a night that seemed so ordinary, yet it ended up becoming one of the most unforgettable and complicated moments of my life. The house was quiet, the rain was falling outside, and I found myself in a situation I never expected, agreeing to share a bed with my adult stepson. At first, it was something I brushed off, something that felt harmless, even innocent. But as the night unfolded, the lines I thought I could never cross began to blur in ways I wasn't ready for. You know how sometimes life throws you into moments where your heart races and your mind can't decide if what you're feeling is right or wrong? That was exactly where I was. Here I was, lying side by side with someone I had known for years, someone I considered family, and yet suddenly, the air between us felt different. Every small movement, every glance seemed to carry a weight that wasn't there before. I could feel the tension growing, and the quiet of the night only made it louder. He wasn't a child anymore. He was a grown man in his 20s, independent and confident, yet still carrying that connection to me that made this moment feel both familiar and strange. I could sense that he felt it too, the shift, the unspoken energy that neither of us had the courage to acknowledge out loud. My heart kept asking questions I didn't want to answer. Was this wrong? Or was it simply two adults caught in a moment of raw honesty with themselves? The thing about moments like these is that they don't announce themselves. They sneak up on you. 1 second, you're telling yourself to stay calm, to keep things normal. The next second, you're wondering if the closeness you're feeling is a mistake, or if it's the kind of mistake that people secretly dream about but never admit. That night, as I tried to fall asleep, I realized that I was already too deep into a story I didn't plan to write. What happened next is something I will never forget. It was the kind of moment that makes you question your own boundaries and forces you to face the truth about what your heart really wants. I can still remember the way I turned slightly, the way our eyes met in the dim light, and how the silence between us spoke louder than any words ever could. But I want you, the listener, to ask yourself, what would you have done in my place? If you were lying there, with someone you weren't supposed to feel this way about, would you have walked away, or would you have stayed to see where the night might lead? Drop your thoughts in the comments, or maybe even answer a poll, because I'm curious to know how many of you would have handled it differently. This was only the beginning. That night took a turn I could never have predicted, and once it started, there was no way of stopping it. Stay with me, because what my stepson did next is something you'll want to hear about. The story is just getting started. That night, as I lay there next to him, I couldn't help but wonder how we had gotten to this point. It wasn't like I had ever planned it, and certainly not something I ever thought would happen in our family. To understand it, you'd have to know the background, how life's little twists and turns brought us under the same roof, sharing space, sharing moments, and eventually sharing something as intimate as a bed. My marriage had been steady for years, but like many families, it had its cracks. My husband worked long hours, often traveling for business, and I found myself managing most of the home life on my own. His son, my stepson, had grown up spending time between two homes. When he was younger, it felt like I was more of a guiding figure, someone to help with school, dinners, and the day-to-day things. But as he got older, things naturally shifted. He wasn't a boy anymore. He became a man with his own mind, his own path, and yet there was always this unspoken bond between us. When he moved back home for a while to save money and get on his feet, I didn't think much of it. It felt normal, even comforting, to have someone else around when my husband was away. We'd spend evenings talking in the kitchen, sharing simple dinners, or just sitting on the couch with the television playing in the background. Sometimes, our conversations would stretch late into the night, moving past surface-level chatter into deeper stories about life, dreams, and disappointments. Those talks created a connection that felt different, subtle, but undeniable. I told myself it was just the natural closeness of family, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I could see it in the way he looked at me sometimes, his eyes lingering a little too long, as if he was reading something on my face that no one else could see. And maybe I did the same. Maybe I found myself noticing his presence a little too much, the sound of his laugh, the way he carried himself with quiet confidence. I would brush it off in the moment, but later, when I was alone, those thoughts lingered. That night when the storm came and the power flickered out, he had knocked on my door, asking if I was all right. It was late, and the house felt colder than usual. I remember laughing it off nervously when he suggested we just sleep in the same room to make the night easier. A part of me wanted to say no, to keep the boundary clear. But another part, quieter, braver, and maybe reckless, agreed. And that was the decision that brought us here, side by side in the dark, with nothing but silence and the sound of rain pressing against the windows. I tried to sleep, but my mind kept racing. Every small move he made seemed amplified. If he shifted, I noticed. If he breathed deeper, I felt it. The space between us seemed both too close and not close enough at the same time. It was confusing, it was overwhelming, and it was filled with a tension I didn't know how to manage. In that moment, lying there, I realized that something had changed between us long before this night. The bed was just the setting that brought it all to the surface. And as much as I tried to convince myself it was nothing, I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something I wouldn't be able to stop. The hours stretched on that night, and though the room was quiet, my thoughts refused to rest. The storm outside seemed to echo what I was feeling inside, unsettled, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. I could sense his presence right beside me, steady but electric, like a current that ran between us. My heart told me this was dangerous, but another part of me whispered that maybe danger was what made it so magnetic. As I lay there, I thought about how fragile family bonds can be when emotions twist them into something more complicated. On the surface, he was my husband's son, someone I had promised to guide and support. But beneath that, I could no longer deny the truth. I had started to see him as more than just family. It wasn't only about attraction, it was about connection. The way we talked, the way we understood each other without saying much, the comfort of his presence when I felt alone, it all built a quiet foundation that now threatened to shake everything I thought I knew about loyalty and love. He shifted slightly, and I caught myself holding my breath. For a split second, his arm brushed against mine. It was nothing, at least it should have been nothing, but it felt like a spark that lit up the entire room. I wanted to move away, to create space and keep things clear, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed, letting the silence stretch and the tension grow. That was the moment I realized the real conflict wasn't between him and me, it was inside myself. I couldn't stop thinking about what would happen if my husband found out. Would he see it as a betrayal, or would he blame himself for being absent so often? And what about him, my stepson? Was this just curiosity for him, or did he feel the same confusing pull I did? Those questions dug deeper into me with every passing minute, and the lack of answers only made me more restless. The next day, nothing looked different, but everything felt different. At breakfast, I tried to act normal, but every glance across the table seemed charged with unspoken words. He was casual, calm, almost as if nothing had happened. But when our eyes met, I saw it, that same awareness that kept me awake all night. It was subtle, hidden behind small talk and half smiles, but it was there. The tension didn't end with the night, it followed us into the morning. Over the next week, the conflict only grew stronger. My husband left again for another work trip, leaving the house quieter, emptier, and full of possibilities I wasn't ready to face. Some evenings, I found myself lingering in the kitchen just to hear him come in. Other times, I avoided him entirely, afraid of what might happen if we were left alone for too long. It was a tug-of-war between desire and restraint, between what I felt and what I knew I was supposed to feel. There was also another layer to the story, people outside our walls. Friends, neighbors, even family members who dropped by from time to time. They saw nothing unusual, nothing out of place. But I kept wondering if anyone looked close enough, could they sense it? Could they see the way our conversations stretched a little too long, or the way we avoided saying goodbye too quickly? That fear of being discovered added another weight to the secret already pressing on me. The days that followed felt like walking on a thin line, every step heavier than the last. I tried to convince myself that the tension between us was only in my imagination, but deep down I knew it wasn't. Each time we were left alone, the air grew thick with the kind of silence that says everything words can't. I could feel his eyes on me when he thought I wasn't looking, and I found myself doing the same, as if drawn by something I didn't want to admit out loud. One evening, the house felt especially quiet. My husband had called to say he'd be gone longer than expected, and suddenly the walls seemed to close in on just the two of us. I tried to distract myself with little chores, washing dishes, folding laundry, but no matter what I did, I was aware of his presence nearby. It wasn't anything he said, it was the unspoken closeness, the way he lingered in the same room, as though he was waiting for something. Later that night, I sat in the living room with a book open in my hands, though I couldn't focus on a single word. He walked in casually, like it was nothing, and sat across from me. For a while, we talked about simple things: work, errands, plans for the week, but the pauses between our words carried a different weight. His eyes held mine longer than they should have, and each glance left me questioning how much longer I could pretend everything was normal. When the clock struck midnight, I thought about retreating to my room, but part of me hesitated. I wondered if leaving would be safer, or if it would only make the pull between us stronger the next time. He stood up, stretched, and then sat closer, just near enough that I could feel the warmth of him beside me. My heartbeat quickened, not because of anything he did, but because of everything that could happen in the next moment. The storm from that first night felt like it had returned, only this time it was inside me. Every thought clashed with another, desire against guilt, temptation against restraint. It was as if the world had gone quiet just to hear what we might do next. I could sense that he felt it too, the same conflict, the same question hanging unspoken between us. Were we about to cross a line we could never step back from? Just when I thought the night couldn't grow heavier with silence, something unexpected happened that shifted everything. My phone buzzed on the table, and when I glanced at it, I saw my husband's name flashing across the screen. It wasn't unusual for him to call late, but the timing made my heart skip. My stepson's eyes flickered toward the phone too, and in that brief moment, I realized he understood exactly what I was feeling, caught between two worlds. I answered quickly, forcing my voice to sound calm, but every word from my husband felt like a reminder of the boundary I was standing so close to crossing. After the call ended, I set the phone down and sat in silence, trying to steady my breath. That's when the twist revealed itself. My husband wasn't just gone for a few more days. He had decided to extend his trip by an entire week. He explained it casually, as if it were nothing, but the weight of it hit me hard. A whole week. 7 more nights of the same tension, the same temptation, the same closeness I was already struggling to resist. The moment I hung up, the energy in the room shifted again. It wasn't just the two of us waiting out a storm anymore. It was two people left in an empty house with too much time and too many unspoken feelings. I caught myself staring at him longer than I should have, wondering what he was thinking, wondering if he was already imagining what might unfold. The suspense was unbearable, and yet there was something intoxicating about it too. Over the next few days, the routine of the house became unpredictable. Sometimes we avoided each other entirely, barely speaking, both of us pretending we were too busy to notice the pull between us. But other times, it was the opposite. We'd linger in the kitchen after dinner, our conversations flowing naturally, only to hit moments of silence that felt more dangerous than any words. Each day without my husband at home made the house feel smaller, the distance between us shorter, and the risk of everything unraveling much greater. The real twist came late one afternoon. I was folding laundry in the living room when I overheard a phone call he was having in the next room. He didn't know I was listening, but his words stopped me cold. He was talking to a friend, and though his voice was low, I caught enough to understand he had been confiding in someone about a complicated situation with someone he cared about more than he should. He never said my name, but I didn't need him to. My heart pounded as I realized it wasn't just me caught in this conflict. He felt it too. He had been wrestling with the same emotions, the same impossible questions. That discovery made everything even more intense. It wasn't just my secret anymore, it was ours. Knowing he was struggling with the same thoughts only drew me closer, even when I told myself to stay away. The suspense grew with every glance, every near touch, every unfinished sentence between us. The moment I had been dreading and expecting all at once finally came one quiet evening. The house was still, the air heavy with that same unspoken tension that had been building for days. I was in the kitchen, tidying up after dinner, when I turned and found him standing in the doorway. His eyes locked on mine, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. It was as if the silence itself was daring us to finally break it. He stepped closer, slow and careful, as though testing whether I would move away. But I didn't. My heart was racing, every thought in my head battling against the rush of emotions I couldn't ignore anymore. All those nights of hesitation, all those stolen glances, had led to this point. And when he finally whispered that he couldn't keep pretending, I realized I couldn't either. The climax wasn't loud or dramatic, it was quiet, charged, and undeniable. We admitted the truth we had both been avoiding. He confessed how long he had felt something for me, how confusing it had been to live under the same roof carrying a secret he couldn't share. And I admitted that I had felt it too, though I had fought so hard against it. That moment of honesty was both terrifying and freeing. For the first time, we weren't dancing around our emotions. We were standing in them, exposed, vulnerable, and completely aware of the cost. But just when I thought the story had reached its breaking point, a twist came that neither of us saw coming. My phone buzzed again, another call from my husband. This time, his tone was different. He told me he had decided to come home early, that he would be back by morning. The words hit like a thunderclap. The reality of everything we had just confessed came crashing down, reminding us of the world outside our moment. We stood there, stunned, both of us realizing what was at stake. The truth we had finally spoken was now tangled with a secret we might never be able to reveal. The tension that had built for so long didn't end with relief, it ended with a new kind of suspense, one that left us with more questions than answers. That night after my husband's call, I barely slept. The house felt heavy with the weight of everything that had just been said, and every thought tangled into the next. By morning, I had convinced myself that whatever had happened between us, the honesty, the connection, the truth we finally admitted, had to stay locked in that night. My husband's return was the reality check I couldn't ignore. When he came home, everything shifted back into place on the surface. The sound of his voice, the rhythm of our routines, the way he looked at me without any suspicion, it all reminded me of the life I had built and the vows I had made. My stepson and I exchanged careful glances, but never said a word about what had happened. We carried on like nothing had changed, but deep down, we both knew everything had. The week that followed tested me in ways I didn't expect. Every small moment, a brush of his hand when passing a dish at dinner, the sound of his footsteps in the hallway late at night, reminded me of the secret we now shared. And yet, neither of us crossed that line again. The truth had been spoken, and though the desire still lingered, we both understood the consequences. We had chosen silence over chaos. The subplot of his life also began to take shape. He got an opportunity to move out sooner than expected, finding a job that offered independence and a fresh start. I encouraged him, even though part of me felt a quiet ache knowing that distance was the only way to make peace with what had almost happened. When he finally packed his things, the goodbye was bittersweet. His hug lingered just a second too long, enough for me to know that he felt the same mixture of gratitude and regret that I did. In the end, I realized the story wasn't about betrayal or desire, it was about the fragile nature of human emotions. Love and connection don't always fit into the boxes we expect. Sometimes they show up in places they shouldn't, testing us, forcing us to confront what we really value. For me, the choice was clear. I had to protect the life I already had, even if it meant carrying the memory of what might have been. As I look back now, I wonder how different things might have turned out if I had made another choice. Would I have followed my heart, or would that path have led only to heartbreak and destruction? It's a question without a clear answer, and maybe that's the point. Life doesn't always give us neat endings, it gives us lessons. So I'll leave this with you. Was silence the right choice, or was it a mischance for something deeper? Would you have walked away, or would you have risked it all? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know if you'd want a sequel to this story, because sometimes the real ending is just another beginning waiting to be told. Summary: A woman finds herself caught between loyalty and temptation when she agrees to share a bed with her adult stepson. What begins as an innocent choice slowly turns into a tangled story of unspoken emotions, forbidden attraction, and life-altering decisions. As secrets unfold and the truth comes to light, she must decide whether to follow her heart or protect the life she's already built. The ending leaves behind not only suspense, but also a reflection on the complexity of relationships and choices. 1.